In this music tech revision session, we're going to look at answering question 4. Question 4 is the big essay. Now, over the years, musictechstudent.co.uk has compiled loads and loads of research and questions based just for this one. The first couple of years of doing this exam, there was no resources available for the history and development of music tech. So we were writing it ourselves, which was fantastic. Doing all the research with my students, it was absolutely brilliant. And from that, we just managed to compile all of these questions, all of which can be found here. So I've just listed it below this post. It's worth doing this often. So I set my students throughout the year one history and development question a week, which for homework, they go and revise and write their notes, and then in class time, we just write a 250-word essay based on their findings. And this is how I get them into that practice. And then I'll get a couple of them to read theirs out, just so we can consolidate that information. So go through the resources, try and answer the questions. If you answer them on the post, we'll reply to them and make sure you're on the right tracks. So have a go at those. Now, question 4 is a written communication question. This means you will be deducted marks if your structure and the way you write your answers are not grammatically correct. So make sure that you spend a bit of time just thinking about the structure, thinking about how you're going to write or what you're going to write to make sure it all makes sense and to make sure the piece flows, okay? So this is the planning that I give my students. So first, during the exam, I always say to them, hey, turn to question 4 first. Don't answer it first, but turn to question 4 first, read both of the options, and kind of make a mental note which option you're going to choose. And always go for the one that you're most comfortable with, not with the one that you think is going to get you the most marks. The one that you're most comfortable with. They're both worth 16, it doesn't matter, but one you're most comfortable with, go and read it first. The reason I tell them to read it first is so that it kind of gets the brain thinking straight away. What I found in the past, my students, if they start answering question 1 and then they answer question 2 and 3, by the time they get to question 4, the time's ticking on in the exam, and then they have to start thinking about what they're going to write. Whereas if they turn to this one straight away, what they can then do is go back to question 1 and then start their exam. And all the time, this will be in the back of their heads. Now, the other thing I say to them is right at the beginning, before the exam starts, ask the moderator for some rough paper. So what you do then is you read the exam, you read the question. If you've got notes for it straight away, you start writing bullet points on your rough paper. Okay, and it might be that you get to question 2 and something clicks in your head. Oh, that'll go well for the essay. And then you write another bullet point. So by the time you get to the exam, you've already got a lot of good information to go and answer that question with. Obviously, as I said previously, practice answering lots of these exam questions, of which we've got probably the best part of 50 questions for you to have a go at answering. Work on your structure, work on your flow. Read out loud to your peers and see what they think, okay? Don't be embarrassed about that. That's a really good way of kind of consolidating that, because the minute you read it out loud, you hear things yourself and go, oh God, I shouldn't have written it that way. And that's really good practice. Write clear and concise. So the types of questions that you could be asked for question 4. The first one is hardware. Now, what tends to happen? The last 2 or 3 years, there's been one question for hardware and there's been one question for the history and development. Now, the hardware, they give you a picture normally and they say to you, okay, explain what each of the parameters on this picture do. So, for instance, if it's a reverb unit or if it's a compression unit, you can then go, okay, I'm not really sure, but let's look at my DAW, let's look at my sequencer, open up the compressor within my sequencer, and just have a little twiddle with some of the dials and see if I can work out what they do. And the good thing about that is you become more clear about what those dials do in the hardware. So you can use your own sequencer as a reference. And that's why I think the hardware options is quite a good one, actually. And it's a bit of a get out clause by Edexcel, because I think the first couple of years that question was really, really difficult. And a lot of mine just did miserable at it. And that's why we put so much emphasis on it. So they included the hardware option. And that's a really nice get out clause, because even if you're not sure, you've got reference points within your own sequencer that you can pull from. Now, the other topics that you'll be asked in the development and history, obviously there's general history. It could even be as close as what social media has done for the music industry. And I think that's going to come up sooner or later, because that's quite an interesting topic, looking at the way that social media has evolved and the way that a lot of the marketing within the music industry is done now. I think that's going to be quite a popular one. The next one, microphones, we've had that before. We've not had synthesis before. We've had sampling. We haven't had live music tech yet. We've had a guitar question before. We've also, every year we get an effects and processing one, or not every year, but majority of years, and that's normally the hardware question. Recording and mixing, once again, we've had that under microphones, and we haven't had MIDI or computer technology one yet. So could come from any of these areas, okay? Once again, if you scroll down now, you'll see a whole bunch of questions that you can pull from. Just click on the link, go to the question you want to answer, read the resources, and then try and answer the question at the bottom of the page. Final thought then, write clear notes for each of the studies. Do this as you're studying them, write your own little notes, and that helps you consolidate all that information. And just practice writing essays. And once again, if you've got a good friend that you can actually turn to read out loud to, or even your folks or your teacher, that's good practice as well. Okay, so good luck with this, and I'll see you in the next one.